For the last couple of years, trying to use AI to actually get your job done has often felt like um, hiring a spectacularly brilliant but completely hands-off consultant.
Oh, right. The kind who just drops a slide deck on your desk and vanishes.
Exactly. You bring them into a conference room, you give them all your context, you ask this highly specific, complicated question, and they hand you back a fantastic, well-thought-out strategy.
Yeah.
But then they just walk out the door. You're left sitting there at your desk looking at this great advice, but you're still stuck doing, all the manual labor of actually executing it yourself.
Yeah, that is really the limitation of a purely conversational dynamic. I mean, the interface most people are used to is essentially read-only when it comes to their actual work environment.
Right.
You ask a question, the system answers in this sealed-off chat window, and you are the one left doing the heavy lifting. You have to copy the text, paste it into your documents, tweak the formatting in your spreadsheet, or manually test the code it suggested.
You're doing the clicking?
Exactly. The human remains the absolute bottleneck for any actual action.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because the entire mission of our deep dive today is to explore a fundamental shift that is happening in the world of work right this very second.
And it's a big one.
It's massive. We are transitioning away from that traditional conversational AI model and moving into what is being called agentic AI.
Right.
And we have a massive new study to guide us today, tracking the usage data of OpenAI's Codex platform over the first half of 2026.
Which is just a gold mine of information.
It really is. And the hook here is that agentic AI usage has simply exploded. We're talking about it growing more than fivefold in just 6 months.
Wow.
But the real story isn't just the raw user count, right? It's how this specific technology is fundamentally reorganizing human workflows.
Right, because the terminology is really important here. Agentic isn't just a buzzword. It refers to a very real mechanical difference in how the software operates.
Tell me more about that.
Well, the core difference between conversing and delegating comes down to system access. Conversational AI gives you text. Agentic AI, like Codex, is designed to have read and write access to your environment.
Okay.
It actually goes into your files, executes command line instructions, accesses external application interfaces, and modifies digital artifacts on your behalf. You step back, and the system takes autonomous, multi-step action.
So if conversational AI is that brilliant consultant who leaves you with a strategy document, agentic AI is more like hiring a dedicated full-time employee.
Yes, exactly.
You give them the objective,
Yeah.
and they actually sit down at the keyboard, open the applications, and do the physical clicking and typing to get the work done.
That analogy captures the operational shift perfectly. And to understand just how profound this transition to delegation is, we need to look at the data on who is actually making the switch.
Right, because not everyone is there yet.
Not at all. The researchers divided users into 3 distinct groups to track adoption. So you have individual accounts, organizational accounts, and internal OpenAI workers. And they measured this shift not by tracking who was simply logging in, but by tracking output tokens.
Now, I want to pause on that metric for a second, because measuring output tokens instead of just active users seems like a very specific choice. Why measure it that way?
Because a login doesn't really tell you anything about the volume of work being done.
What do you mean?
Well, if I log in to ask an AI for a pancake recipe, and you log in to have an AI write a 50-page market analysis, we both count as one user in the lock-in metrics.
Oh, I see. But the actual work is totally different.
Right. Our economic output is wildly different. Tokens essentially measure computational effort. You can think of them as syllables or chunks of words generated by the model.
Okay.
So by measuring output tokens, the researchers are tracking the actual volume of digital labor being performed.
That makes total sense. It's essentially measuring the sweat equity of the AI.
Precisely. And when you look at the data through that lens of digital labor, the gap between casual users and power users is just staggering.
How big of a gap are we talking?
For individual users, so people just using personal accounts, only about 0.7% are actively using agentic tools.
0.7. That's tiny.
It's nothing. They are still treating AI like a chatbot. Conversational interfaces make up the vast majority of their token generation. But when you move to organizations like business and enterprise environments, the picture changes entirely.
Okay.
Suddenly, 17.3% of active users in these organizations have adopted Codex, and it's generating 63.3% of their output tokens.
Wow. So businesses are adopting it much, much faster than individuals. But the study really focuses on that third group, right? The internal OpenAI workforce, using them as a sort of crystal ball for the rest of us.
Yeah, and what's fascinating here is what that internal data proves about human behavior when all the friction is removed. Inside OpenAI, adoption of agentic AI is almost universal.
Almost universal.
Yes, as of June 2026, a staggering 99.8% of their internal AI output tokens come from agentic tools. They have almost entirely abandoned traditional chat interfaces for their daily work.
Wait, 99.8%?
Yeah.
That means chat is practically dead inside the very company that made chat interfaces famous to begin with.
Exactly. It tells us that the barrier to agentic AI isn't the technology's capability at all, it's the environment.
Interesting.
OpenAI workers operate in the zero-friction ecosystem. They have deep institutional knowledge of how these agents work, they don't face any arbitrary usage limits, and they have total organizational buy-in to just let machines execute tasks.
So they're living in the future.
Pretty much. That internal population isn't some weird outlier, it's a preview. It shows us exactly what the broader market will inevitably look like once the software administrative hurdles and corporate red tape are finally cleared away.
I hear that, but I have to play the skeptic for a moment on behalf of you listening. When we talk about Codex, we are talking about a platform that originated in the software engineering space.
Sure, yeah.
And I totally get why a coder wants an agent with access to their files to write, test, and debug software. But if I'm not a developer, if I'm an HR, or I'm a marketing director or a financial analyst, why should I care about this? Is this just a highly specialized coding tool that the researchers are maybe extrapolating a bit too far?
Honestly, I would have shared that exact skepticism a year ago, but the data clearly refutes it. We are seeing this massive evolution into what the researchers classify as delegated production.
Delegated production, okay.
Yeah. Users are no longer just generating Python scripts. They are dramatically scaling up the complexity of the tasks they hand off across all departments.
Like what? Give me some examples.
We are talking about drafting complex legal documents, configuring enterprise software applications, cleaning and analyzing massive financial spreadsheets, and coordinating multi-party email communications, all autonomously.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. The study didn't just look at the variety of the tasks, but the sheer weight of them. They tracked requests that would normally take an experienced human professional more than 8 hours to complete manually.
Yes.
Basically, a full, grueling workday. And since the start of 2026, the share of users who are sending at least one of these massive 8-hour requests has jumped from 2.1% to 25.6%.
That metric is honestly the crux of the entire paradigm shift. Over a quarter of these users are handing off an entire day's worth of labor in a single interaction.
Which is wild.
And the behavioral data shows they are front-loading this heavy lifting too. The most complicated, time-consuming requests almost always happen at the very start of a user session.
Like right when they log on in the morning.
Exactly. They hand off the massive, broad, 8-hour architectural task first thing, and then they spend the subsequent turns in the thread just making very narrow, targeted refinements to the output.
Let's make that concrete for a non-developer, because you mentioned legal and marketing earlier. What does an 8-hour prompt actually look like mechanically? Because I can't imagine you just type, "do my marketing job," and walk away to get coffee.
No, it's much more structured than that. A marketing director isn't just asking for a single social media post.
Right.
Their initial prompt might look something like, access the CRM database, pull the engagement metrics for the last 3 enterprise campaigns, cross-reference that data with our competitor's pricing API, draft a 10-page positioning memo highlighting our strategic advantages, and finally, format those insights into an HTML email template for the sales team.
Wow. Okay, wait. That is a full day of data pulling, analyzing, writing, and formatting.
Or more for a human. And that completely explains the explosion in output from non-engineers. The study highlights that between November 2025 and June 2026, the median legal worker at OpenAI generated 13 times more output tokens.
13 times.
Customer support generated 32 times more. And researchers generated 50 times more output. We are rapidly moving from micro assistance to macro delegation.
Okay, but this brings up a massive logistical problem. If you are sitting at your desk and you just successfully handed off a complex 8-hour task to a digital agent, what are you doing with the rest of your day?
Right.
If the machine is doing all the executing, how are these power users actually spending their time?
They are running parallel workflows. This is arguably the most disruptive finding in the entire study regarding personal productivity.
Because they don't have to wait.
Exactly.
Okay.
Because these agents operate autonomously, they don't require you to sit and watch a progress bar fill up. You don't have to wait for the marketing memo to finish before you ask for the next task.
Yeah.
The data shows that nearly 28.6% of OpenAI workers are managing 5 or more concurrent agent threads at the exact same time.
The aggregate numbers on that concurrency are just mind-blowing because they are running 5 or more agents in parallel. The 99th percentile of workers, like the absolute frontier power users, are logging around 71 hours of active agent runtime in a single calendar day.
Which completely shatters the physical limits of the human workday. You have one single person generating the equivalent of nearly 2 weeks of traditional execution labor in 24 hours.
But hold on, I have to challenge this. 71 hours of AI output sounds impressive on paper, sure, but mechanically, isn't that just a recipe for 71 hours of hallucinations and errors?
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, if I have 5 agents running massive tasks, the sheer cognitive load of reviewing all that output to make sure it isn't garbage would be impossible. It sounds like a quality control nightmare, not a productivity miracle.
And that is the exact bottleneck you would hit if you were just typing free-form chat prompts. And it's why these power users rely heavily on what the platform calls skills to ensure quality.
Skills. Okay, explain that.
If you are managing 71 hours of output, you absolutely cannot afford the variance of an AI guessing how you want a task done. Skills are essentially prepackaged workflows, strict tool integrations, and saved procedural contexts.
So mechanically, how does a skill actually prevent the hallucination problem?
You can think of a skill as a rigid set of boundaries and deterministic logic chains.
Okay.
Instead of a vague prompt, a skill might contain a specific JSON payload, predetermined API calls, and a strict rule system that says, when querying the financial database, you must use this specific search parameter, and you cannot invent numbers under any circumstances.
It builds a fence around the agent.
Exactly. It forces the agent to use reliable, pre-proofed pathways to gather information before it starts generating any text. Over 26% of all active users and a massive 96% of internal OpenAI users are utilizing these skills to make their delegated work repeatable and, most importantly, predictable.
So if we look at a single human worker today, the old model was basically like being a line cook.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
You stood at the stove, you chopped the onions, you seared the meat, you did everything linearly, one dish at a time. But this new agentic model turns you into the executive chef standing at the pass.
Right.
You were shouting orders to 5 different digital sous chefs at the same time, and those skills you just described are the highly standardized recipes. You expect the kitchen to follow them to the letter, so you don't have to literally taste every single ingredient before it goes out.
That is a brilliant way to conceptualize it. Your fundamental job description changes from execution to orchestration.
Orchestration.
You manage that 71 hours of culinary output by shifting your energy entirely away from chopping the onions yourself and dedicating it to oversight, quality control, and menu design.
But to run a kitchen like that, you can't just operate out of a food truck. Managing a fleet of digital workers requires completely rethinking how a business physically and structurally operates, right?
Absolutely. If we connect this to the bigger picture, the study uses a classic economic theory from Paul David to explain exactly this structural hurdle.
Oh, the steam engine thing.
Yes. David studied the historical transition from steam power to electric power in manufacturing factories in the late 19th and early 20th centuries.
This is such a great historical parallel. Because early on, factories didn't actually see a productivity boost from electricity, did they?
They didn't. And the reason why is really fascinating. A steam-powered factory was built around one massive centralized steam engine, with a complex system of belts and shafts delivering power to all the different workstations.
Okay.
So the layout of the entire building was totally dictated by how close a machine needed to be to that central power source. When electricity arrived, early factory owners simply removed the giant steam engine and replaced it with a giant electric motor.
They just swapped the engine but kept the exact same belt and shaft layout.
Exactly. And their productivity gains were negligible. The massive world-changing gains of the Industrial Revolution only happened decades later, when factory owners realized that electricity allowed them to redesign the entire factory floor.
Because they didn't need the belts anymore.
Right. Electric motors could be miniaturized. You could put a small motor on every individual workstation, which meant you could completely reorganize the assembly line based on the logical flow of the work, rather than the physical constraints of a central power shaft.
And the researchers are arguing that agentic AI is basically our generation's electric motor.
Yes, precisely.
Right now, a lot of companies are just ripping out the steam engine and plugging in an AI, but keeping their legacy workflows.
Hmm.
If you give an employee an autonomous agent capable of doing an 8-hour task, but your corporate policy still requires them to pass that document through 5 layers of manual human approval before it can be sent,
Yeah.
you gain absolutely nothing.
Nothing. The bottleneck just moves down the hall. And this perfectly explains the massive adoption gap between casual individuals and organizational power users that we talked about earlier.
Also,
Well, an individual user is still operating their own personal steam engine workflow. They are constrained by their own habits. But the real exponential value is unlocked when a whole department redesigns its collaborative factory floor.
they have to rebuild the whole process.
Right. Organizations have to restructure reporting lines, approval processes, and data access permissions to actually accommodate these agents.
The value of the human worker is rapidly shifting away from routine execution tasks.
Yes. Your economic value is moving toward judgment, deep domain expertise, and the ability to integrate different pieces of complex work generated by your agents.
So what does this all mean for you listening to this right now? It means the metric of your professional success is undergoing a radical shift.
It really is.
It is becoming less about your personal manual output, how fast you can type, how perfectly you can code, or how quickly you can format a spreadsheet. The new metric is your ability to direct, systematize, and supervise the outputs of digital systems that act on your behalf.
We are crossing a threshold. We are moving from a world of asking AI for answers to managing AI systems that take action.
Yeah.
The ceiling on your daily productivity is no longer determined by how many hours you can physically stay awake. It is determined by how effectively you can delegate.
It really is incredible to see this quantified in the data. We are watching the fundamental mechanics of knowledge work evolve in real time, captured in just 6 months of platform usage.
It is a remarkable data set. But, it also introduces a massive structural challenge for the future, and it's a paradox I want to leave you with today.
Okay, fair.
If agentic AI is now fully capable of executing these massive 8-hour entry-level tasks, the exact kind of grueling execution work we typically hand to junior employees fresh out of college, how do organizations train the next generation of human managers?
Oh, wow. That is the multi-million-dollar question.
Right. If a junior employee doesn't learn the ropes by doing the tedious, hands-on data pulling and drafting, how will they ever develop the deep domain expertise required to be the executive chef?
Right.
If they've never chopped the onions themselves, how will they know how to spot an error when supervising the autonomous agents of the future?
It is a fascinating and honestly slightly terrifying paradox. The very tools that give us 71 hours of superhuman productivity today might actually dismantle the training ground for the human experts of tomorrow.
Yeah.
We invite you to mull over that paradox as you look at your own daily workflows. Take a hard look at how you spend your 8 hours and ask yourself whether you're still operating a scheme engine or if you're ready to redesign your factory floor. Until next time, keep diving deep.